Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm doing a little live Q&A. Haven't done one of these in a few days, or more than a few days. So I'm here to answer your questions. So any questions you have, shoot them to me, and we'll chat. You know what I mean? I really like doing these live Q&As from time to time. There's probably some of you that are watching this later and are like, why couldn't you do it a few hours later? Well, this is actually the best time I could have done it today, unfortunately. But I will be answering any questions for those of you who show up, whether it's related to software, entrepreneurship, building a YouTube channel, writing courses, creating courses, any of those things. So let me know what questions you have so we can get this thing going. But thanks for coming out. Thanks for watching if you're here. Normally we get some questions in the first few minutes, but what I'm going to do here is I'm also going to show you something that I can't even tell you how excited I am about it because of the first version that I did get to play with quite a bit. So this right here, oh, hello there. That's a new camera angle. This right here, Turing Pi 2. Really excited about this because of the potential that you will be doing with all of your computing at the edge. So the edge being having your own like miniature AWS cloud at your house or at your office or if you work at a restaurant or something like that. This is like super, super exciting to me. I'm really looking forward to that thing coming out because I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff related to Kubernetes. And Kubernetes is a cluster, or actually container orchestration service, which means that if you want to deploy containers and all that, Kubernetes can actually help you handle all of those containers. And there's another thing called Ansible, which I just found out about because of two awesome YouTube creators. Ansible is incredible. So this is a really simple and easy way to deploy and manage clusters. So if you say Ansible, Kubernetes, and Turing Pi 2, you're going to have some incredible clusters on there. So all of that is incredibly exciting to me. So yeah, let me know if you guys have questions. I'm here to answer them. It looks like maybe it's just not the greatest time to go live because I realize a lot of times I get a bunch of questions right away, and right now I'm just not getting many. So that's okay. You know? No worries on that. It's just one of those things that happens when you go live at the wrong time. So yeah, I guess we could talk more about Ansible and Kubernetes. So if you haven't used Ansible yet, it's actually really easy to do. So the main thing here is when you have a bunch of different servers that you're working on and you need to SSH into each one of those servers to change things, what Ansible does is it allows you to actually connect to all of those servers incredibly easily and do it in a way where you just list off all of the IP addresses. There's other ways to do it too, but all the IP addresses that you're going to be connecting to, and then you can write pretty standard commands that go in there. And you know, some might say like, oh, this is conflicting a little bit maybe with what you might end up doing with Docker, but it's not. So what Ansible will allow you to do is actually handle the server setup to allow for Kubernetes to work. So your entire cluster can be set up and run from Ansible, and then you use something like Kubernetes or K3s. So another thing that's really cool. So K8s is like the full-fledged Kubernetes. K3s is a lightweight version of it, which is what we'll end up using on the Turing Pi 2. So I'm super, super excited about all of these things. I still personally have to learn a lot more about how it all works to make sure that it's actually working well once we actually get into all of it. You know what I mean? So that's just a little preview of things to come. If you are interested in those things, I will definitely have them on my website. I'll probably cover some stuff related to it on YouTube as well. So yeah, just let me know about that. Hello, hey, what's up? It's 6 a.m. in India. Yeah, it's probably way too early. 6 a.m. on a probably Monday morning, I'm assuming then. That certainly is way too early for a lot of you guys that are interested in jumping on these live streams. I totally get that. It's 5:20 p.m. in California on Sunday, and this was the perfect time to do it. And I actually started working on a little bit different of a studio setup. So my video is a little bit further back. So it's not so much like right here. I might even push it even further back so you get more of like my upper body, I guess. So it feels like we're sitting at a table together, not like you're in my face, you know? But then I also added this camera angle right here. I may or may not keep this one. I'm not sure yet. It's a web camera where the other one, this angle right here, that's a DSLR. So we'll see. It's just about improving things. That's it. But honestly, I also did a bunch of cable management. So now I only have just primarily one cable that I need to deal with because of how my studio's set up. There's not like outlets right behind here. It's just like kind of like, I don't know, 10 feet that way. So we'll figure that out. Anyways, excited about some of these new changes. So yeah, thanks for coming out. For those of you who are here already, let's see here. Daily Tech. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Where you from? It's probably too early where you're from too, maybe, or too late. I don't know. What's the main difference between Docker and Kubernetes? So good question. Actually, let's take a look at those things on the screencast here for a second. So what happens here is we've got Kubernetes is production grade container orchestration. Well, what the heck does container mean? Well, that's actually Docker. So Docker actually creates containers. Okay, so confident production, it doesn't say it anywhere on here, but Kubernetes actually runs all of your Docker containers, or at least it can. It's not the only way to do it, but it definitely can do it. And that's one of the key differences between the two is Kubernetes sort of relies on Docker. Docker doesn't necessarily rely on Kubernetes. But together, they are incredible tools. So I definitely recommend learning more about them. I'm like super jealous of these two guys that cover a lot of things in relation to Docker and Kubernetes, specifically Network Chuck. His YouTube channel is amazing. I hope someday I can jump on a podcast with him. But if you aren't subscribed to his channel, go check it out. I highly, highly recommend it. He's just like really good at all of the DevOps and operations and system engineering side of the web, which I think is still so fascinating. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, just let me know, and I'll try and readdress anything that's going on there with it. Thanks for the question. Hey, first time catching live. Cool. So this might have been a good time for you. Where are you in the world right now? Yes, where are you? Hey, what software do I use to stream comments or stream to YouTube and switch between cameras, like camera 1 and camera 2? So this software is called OBS Studio. Let me just show you this real quick. OBS Studio. Open broadcaster software. This is amazing. It's free. It works on all three of those operating systems. The only thing that you will need to do is set up your camera. So you can use a webcam. So there's a webcam. This thing is like, I don't know, 5 or 6, 4 years old, something like that. And it's an HD webcam. So it should be 1080p. Who knows for real. But a lot of webcams now, you could probably get one for 50 or 60 bucks, and that will do the job. This one right here, that's a DSLR using a Camlink 4K. That has much higher resolution overall of a camera. So that might be a better feed overall. But I would have to know from you guys, because the Camlink 4K says it can do it in 4K, but it doesn't seem to actually do it in 4K on these live streams. As far as the comments are concerned down below, I actually created a tool that uses the YouTube API to pull those things in. OBS allows you to actually embed a browser source, so you can actually embed a web page browser which is a little bit different than something like this, where that's showing my screen. It's not actually showing the web page itself, but you can actually embed a full-on web page into OBS. It's really, really cool. So I highly, highly recommend it. So yeah, thanks for the question. And if you've never done live before, I really think it's worth practicing it now, right? So even if you're not that comfortable in front of a camera, but especially not that comfortable going live, getting in the habit of doing it is not that big of a deal. It totally feels that way when you start, especially if your expectations are really high or your expectations are really low. Like if you think you're going to really bomb, or you think that you're going to get, 1,000 people coming on your live stream. Probably not, right? Like sometimes I get a lot of people on my live stream. Sometimes I don't. Like today, not nearly as many people as I have in the past for these live Q&As. Totally fine. No big deal. Those of you that show up, I'm going to chat with you guys. But I definitely recommend going live, trying it out, using OBS. OBS, it's really simple. You just get a key from YouTube or Twitch or a lot of these other live things, and you put it in your settings, and you just hit start stream. It's really, really cool. Thanks for the question. How can I start learning NLP, natural language processing, for deep learning and AI? So there's a really cool tool, and they have a YouTube channel with a bunch of tutorials called Rasa, R-A-S-A. That might be a good place to start. Fast AI, that's FAST.ai. They have a lot of courses as well. Some of it does cover NLP, and NLP has changed a lot because of deep learning. So old traditional techniques of natural language processing have changed a lot because of deep learning. So I would go the deep learning method if I were you. Best course, I honestly, it's hard to say because I think you should probably learn deep learning first and then move into NLP. And if that's the case, then Fast AI is where it's at. I think Fast AI also has NLP in there. I don't know if the current version does, because they definitely changed the software that they use quite a bit, but I think it does. So if you find out if they do, please let me know. I would love to check it out. Cool. Okay, so how should I learn full stack? Well, actually, I don't think initially you should try and learn full stack. I think realistically, what you should try and do is build a project in some software, whether that's Python or JavaScript or Java or Swift. It doesn't really matter. Just pick one programming language, build a project, then build another one, and then another one. And with that, you'll start to learn when you'll need to add other areas to the stack, right? So a good example for me is what I'm working on myself is this right here. So Turing Pi 2, this is a hardware device. I actually have the Turing Pi 1. They sent it to me. So Turing Pi 1, this is just a bare metal Raspberry Pi clusters. So what this is doing for me is getting me more on the actual engineering side and the DevOps side of hardware for cloud computing, right? So it's forcing me to learn a lot more about how all those technologies work. And thus I discovered new technologies I need to learn. The key one for me was Ansible. So I learned Ansible because I'm trying to make this project happen on my own, right? I've definitely gone a pretty good way so far, and I already had a big background in Docker and Kubernetes, so I already like knew generally what I wanted to do. But it wasn't until I actually had this device and I started tinkering with it that I realized now I need to learn Ansible. And the reason I'm bringing these things up is because that's how you should approach full stack learning as well, is you pick a bunch of different projects and start learning them as soon as you can, and then learn what you need to learn to finish that project, whatever that project is. Obviously, if you make too ambitious of projects, you might never finish it. So I would say at the beginning, just get in the habit of doing even really, really small projects, like something like texting your friends, right? So automatically texting your friends at, I don't know, noon every day, just saying, hey, what are you eating for lunch? Or something like that. That's a silly project. But if you could do it in maybe an hour, probably less, that's probably a good thing to start with and attempt at least. I don't know. Thanks for the question. And like to follow up with your next question, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I think once you learn one, you can switch to the other. Personally, I found Python and Django by far the easiest way that really hooked me in. That's what got me into programming, really. I tried many other ones. React wasn't out then, so that didn't matter. This was like, I don't know, 2011 and 2010, 2011. So Python and Django really hooked me in, and then that opened up the floodgates to me for all these other things because I got really comfortable with using that. So yeah, thanks for the question. From India. Cool. Welcome. Keep grinding on the purpose. Yeah. I'm a big believer of just following your effort, like working really, really hard at something you believe is important. That's why I'm on here with you guys. I believe it's important to help everyone, as many people as I can, I should say, around the world to make this software thing happen. Because it's really like a great way to elevate our societies, regardless of where you are. Because there's so much free stuff out there and so many tools that are getting cheaper and cheaper by the day that make so much of our lives better. I really, really think that. So I believe in working hard on the things that you believe in. So yeah, a lot to that statement. So this goes along with your question here. How do you keep yourself motivated in coding? So like, I think motivation is fleeting for everyone. So instead, you should actually set up some sort of habit in doing it. No matter how much progress you're making, if you're working on any product or project, if you're coding every day for like an hour, half an hour, some sort of habit that you're doing it. Let's say it's just half an hour a day. You write some software and you're actively trying to do a little bit better each time you do it. As in, you're not just, declaring variables or something, but you're actually trying to build something each time you do it. And if you literally did that every day, maybe in 3 years, you will start to be like, wow, this is actually not that hard. And it's probably going to happen much sooner than that. But I think just making it a habit is important. It's just like, did you forget to eat today? Well, probably not. Did you forget to sleep last night? Probably not. Those things are habits that we need, right? We absolutely need to do those things. And if you turn software into that same kind of habit, then even if you're mad at it and you're just like pissed off and you don't even want to do it and you're like, screw this, I'm over it, I hate software, you can still do it. You just do it and just keep doing it until it's no longer a motivation thing. It's just something you do on a regular basis, and then eventually you get better. That being said, software is not for everybody, right? So maybe it's just something that you shouldn't be doing, and you should be doing something else that really ignites your soul, I guess, your passion and your energy. Because if it doesn't do those things ever at all, why even doing it? Just because it's a good idea? I don't know. I don't think that's a great idea. I think it's nice to know how to code, but if your heart's not in it, you shouldn't do it, right? So like my wife knows a little bit of R, or she did R, which is funny because I've never really done R, but she did R in grad school. And I was just recently talking to her about this, and like, she probably doesn't remember it now, but her heart's not in doing that, right? But she has done it. So yeah, anyways, not referring, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Thanks for that. Questions. Can I give you some tips to learn machine learning for beginners? Sure, yeah. So I would say one of the best ways to learn is to find a project that you care about that's not obviously code, right? So let's say, for instance, you want to find clips of your favorite actor or actress in a movie, right? That might be kind of hard to do, just trying to think of it, but I'll give you advice on how you could do it. First, you just take a bunch of screenshots of that particular actor, and then you put them into a folder. You start to have hundreds of those pictures, and eventually you'll have a really good data set of that specific actor. That's going to take a good amount of time, right? And then after that, you look at something called image classification, and you just use some of the basic things. I think Google just brought out something called teachable machines, something like that, where you can literally just drop in some images like that with a tag, so an actor's name or whatever it is, and then you can actually just use that. So to me, it's like you build that data first, and then you use whatever shortcutty, hacky way to get that an actual algorithm that you want to use, and then you use something like OpenCV or MoviePy to go through each frame and predict what's in that frame. To me, that might hook you. I think it would. It definitely hooked me a lot with machine learning. Of course, that's using deep learning most likely. So there are other things that you can do, like a spam detector. But I would say picking a project that interests you. To me, something with the images, something in the image realm is probably the easiest thing to get going with, because there's a lot of tutorials out there that relates to that. But of course, it always goes back to actually picking a good project that will help you keep going. Something that you're interested in, right? So like, I don't know if hot dog versus not hot dog is super interesting, but perhaps you want to see every play that Michael Jordan ever did, right? How do you actually build a tool that automatically finds the timestamps for that? And that would be a matter of finding literally every frame, so every image in a video, is Michael Jordan in this or not? And then you just put a bunch of YouTube videos on there, and then boom, you'll probably find a bunch of clips on there. That might be actually a fun tutorial to do at some point. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think about that. Wow, a lot of machine learning stuff right now. That's pretty cool. Give me 1 second. Did any of you guys watch the my last podcast with Mitch? I totally muted for like 5 minutes, and I'm not like actively looking at the live chat because I was chatting with Mitch because I took a drink of water. I don't know. It's kind of funny. Okay, next question. Hey, how do I start deep learning and build some really good projects? By the way, I'm an undergrad student. So I just mentioned a way to start. FastAI as a library, so fast.ai, let's actually just take a look at it, is a really, really easy way to do this. So fast.ai, they have some courses in here, Practical Deep Learning for Coders. This course has all sorts of stuff that I think is well worth checking out. I have courses too, but like I still absolutely love everything that Jeremy Howard does, like with FastAI and his books and stuff like that. So he does have a book too that is also, I think, open source, worth checking out. But this would be a good place to start because he starts from, here, let me just hand you over some code that will definitely run and build a model. And then he starts peeling back the layers to get more and more in depth on the challenges that come up with building machine learning things. So definitely recommend Jeremy's stuff. Thanks for the question. It's a good one. Let's see here. You're in Django. Can I go live with no front-end framework? And after a year, can I change the... Oh, absolutely. So the question is, do you need React, Vue, Angular? Do you need any of those JavaScript frameworks on the front end to deploy a Django project? Absolutely not. You definitely do not need that. You don't even need CSS. Look at Craigslist. If you're not familiar with Craigslist, definitely check it out. I would imagine everyone around the world is familiar with Craigslist, but even if you're not, it is like, it might as well have came out of the 90s, right? So it's a really old looking design because it doesn't really use a lot of JavaScript, and the CSS it has is pretty minor. And it's incredibly successful of a project. So Django can absolutely do all of those things. So yeah, you definitely do not need a front end. The front end just helps it feel a lot more like as if it was a native application on their machine, but also add some like user experience things that maybe just Django alone probably wouldn't accomplish. So yeah, you can totally do that. And the thing about software is after a year or less or more, you'll always want to change things. You'll always want to just adjust it a little bit. Even Craigslist, for how much it doesn't look like it changes, it does change from time to time to make it work better. So that will always be true. Less people on here because in the early morning in most of the Asian countries. Yeah, I see that. That's interesting. Interesting to see. But yeah, I'm not surprised because yeah, a lot of those live streams when it's like at nighttime for you guys, I think it's like 10 a.m. for me, and that's like seems to be the really good time to jump on and chat with a lot of you. So yeah, but I figured, hey, I got a little time to jump on a chat, so why don't we do it now, even though it is way too early in the morning for half of the world. Hey, you're from India. You have 8+ years of experience. Ooh, this got cut off a little bit. Let's try that. I'm into ITSM domain. ITSM. You might want to tell me what that acronym is. There's so many acronyms in IT. It's crazy. So let me know. You're currently reskilling yourself in Python for broad opportunities. Cool. That's awesome. Good luck with all that. Yeah. Appreciate it. I think Python is a great way to go right now. Yeah, 4:30 a.m. I realize it. Still got some work to do on this question thing, huh? How much of a possibility of getting a visa-sponsored Django developer job with a year experience? Total experience in software development is 8+ years. What did you do with other technology, I guess, would be the first thing. I honestly, I don't know the answer to this question. I think somebody that has done this before might be a better fit, but I would imagine if you're getting visa sponsorship, it's probably not the best idea to be like, it's just one language. You should probably try to get visa sponsorship from a job that's looking for a software developer that can pick up things really, really fast. Whether it's Django or Kubernetes or whatever it is. Maybe not Kubernetes if you're doing Django, but the general idea is being able to pick up other things fast. Because there are definitely some developers that can pick up the latest thing in like weeks, which is pretty amazing. I wish I was that developer, like, oh, new technology, cool. I'm just gonna spend the weekend and then I'll be like an almost expert level. I just need another few months and then I'll be expert level. There's people that are like that. It's crazy. Like I said, I wish I was one of those. Let's see here. Is it required for Python Django developers to learn JavaScript? Well, yeah, I really need to work on this question thing. Oops, wrong one. Don't edit live. Don't edit the screen live. Rule number 1, Justin. Okay, so yeah. So no, you do not. It's not required that you learn JavaScript, but it's a really good idea that you do. Right? So you could definitely be a Django only developer and crush it. But if you don't know JavaScript, or at least a little bit of it, I think it's going to be harder for you to get a job because so much of the web these days requires JavaScript to be a part of that stack. But again, it depends on the team size. So if you're on a really big team and you're just the Django developer, then you should be good. But I think learning JavaScript's a good idea anyway. So yeah, 8:30 in the Philippines. Thank you. 8:30 a.m. What do I do besides YouTube? Yeah, so I run my website, so codingforentrepreneurs.com or cfe.sh. Let's take a look at that. So codingforentrepreneurs.com right there. I run this. So I create a bunch of classes and all that stuff. So that's part of it. I've definitely had other businesses and I have coached, I've freelanced in the past. I also I've taught at universities. or a university, I should say. And yeah, I mean, I think YouTube is just one of many things that I do for teaching people how to code. But then outside of teaching, I spend a lot of time learning and building projects myself. So yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, middle of the desert in Dubai. Thank you. Appreciate it. Um, what can I use to scrape Twitter for tweets that are more than 7 days old? Selenium. Check out my 30 days of Python series on there on that specifically. I think I use the Twitter API for one thing because you can use that. You don't have to scrape them. Or if you need to scrape them, you can use Selenium, which I do with Instagram in 30 days of Python. And that's right here on YouTube. So check that series out. Definitely worth it, I think. Yes. Okay. So here we go. Interesting question. Do I think that machine learning is fool's gold? I know a lot of graduates who are interested in machine learning but are not getting any jobs related to machine learning because companies want people with good experience. Okay. So it's fair to say that companies do want people with good experience. Yes. And it's also challenging to say that as a graduate of anything, that you will quickly be hired just because you just graduated from a university or a boot camp or something like that. I think that machine learning is definitely not fool's gold at all, in the sense that it's not like a overhyped thing. I think really what's happening is the vast majority of businesses have no idea how to implement machine learning in their systems. I don't mean the big ones. The big tech companies obviously know how to do it. And maybe even some of the other big companies in the world know how to do it. I'm talking about the medium-sized businesses, the small businesses, like the coffee shop down the street. Did they know how to put in machine learning? Or the restaurant down the street? Probably not. They probably don't know how to use those things. But then there's also manufacturing facilities that do all sorts of things, like the ones that make these mics that I have. Do they use machine learning there? I don't know. They probably don't. So I think as a graduate, what you should be doing is writing about all of these ideas that all of these different companies can use machine learning for, right? Because the lack of education in the business world is incredibly high, right? So like I'm pretty familiar with how to use machine learning in a lot of different areas, and I have a lot of ideas for it. But when it comes to talking to other entrepreneurs that I know or other business owners, they're just like, oh, well, I'm just waiting for a self-driving car to come, right? They're not actively thinking, what area can we build machine learning in? Sometimes they talk about it, but the problem is the misunderstanding of what you can do with machine learning. And it kind of jumps to like, oh, well, I want this crazy, super advanced system when they could see huge productivity gains with something really small. I mean, something really small being like, if you're a pizza place and you want to improve the quality of your pizza that comes out of the oven when the owner is not there, that's a really good grounds for machine learning. And it's not that big of a project. It would be a little challenging to implement initially, but over time, it's going to be amazing. And that pizza place is not going to spend a few $1,000s right now to do that or more. Definitely not hire somebody. So I think it's a tricky situation that we're in for a lot of machine learning graduates. But make no mistake, once we start getting more AI-based companies that are just killing it, you're going to see a lot. They're not going to have enough jobs for the graduates that are there. A good example of this is like when Uber came out, right? So Andrew Ng talks a lot about how adding a website to a taxi company didn't make them a internet-based taxi service, right? It wasn't until Uber that, as a society, as the world, Uber and Lyft, all of the different ride-sharing services, it wasn't until then that we really understood what an internet-based taxi service looked like. We had no idea. So I think once we start seeing that in the AI space, then you'll start to see a huge explosion. So a good example of this would be if somebody other than Tesla solves self-driving first, and then that will open the floodgates for that company because we'll start seeing it everywhere. But then people will be like, okay, well, what else can we do that's not quite at the level of self-driving, but still very, very useful like that? Something that I would love to have is an AI that literally switches webcams or cameras inside of my studio whenever I look at a different one, right? So like right now I am manually doing it. And if I hired somebody, they would have to be the ones that are manually switching me back and forth, right? So that would be an amazing tool as well. So I could talk for a long, long time why machine learning is absolutely going to be a critical thing in this future. So thanks for the question. I think that was really, really good. Really good. Yes. So yeah, I mean, it kind of goes along with this question too. What do I think the future of ML and AI? I think they'll be relevant after 10 years? Yes, absolutely. We'll think they'll be relevant after 10 years. And much, much further. Another thing to think about too, as a software developer is, you know how like in Gmail or on your phone, you have predictive text in there, and it works pretty good, right? What's going to happen is as a software developer, we'll get even better predictive text. Things that are like, that we do very common. So if you're like Django and you're writing a model, it's going to you're going to write out a little bit and then it's going to suggest an entire model to you based on your previous model setup and stuff like that. And then boom, you instead of writing for a minute or two, you get something in 30 seconds or 5 seconds immediately, whatever it is. And that tool Kite sort of does this already. And I think that they're working towards that. So I have that tool Kite linked in the description. So play around with that if you're interested in the AI space for software developers. Oh yeah. So what are some business ideas for a third world country? So I think having a data centers like on a smaller scale. So let me talk about this, and let me just move over to something here real quick. So what we've got is Turing Pi and Turing Pi 2. So what this is, well, this is going to be about 4 Raspberry Pi compute modules on one device. Okay. So what that means is if you needed a pretty robust cloud or a pretty robust networking system that can work offline, this is like the direction that you might go. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's a company in the US called Chick-fil-A. Maybe you guys have them around the world. I don't actually know. But there's a company called Chick-fil-A that did a talk. I just tweeted it on my personal account a couple days ago, but they did a talk discussing how using these like little compute modules, not the Turing Pi, but other ones, whereas it was basically like a mini cloud for each restaurant so that the restaurant can run pretty well, right? So what I think is a really good opportunity for third world countries is to start implementing these mini clouds because they don't require the internet to be really high performant. So you can actually implement a really robust like system inside of a restaurant, inside of a manufacturing facility that has full-on networking capabilities similar to AWS. That's Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud. Certainly not at that scale. Like it would not be able to handle the scale that it does, but it is going to start inching closer. The other thing is actually building cloud services that can be connected through the internet using some of these cheaper or less expensive devices. I think that might be pretty interesting as far as hardware and software is concerned. Another thing would be AI, some sort of artificial intelligence or machine learning that maybe combines with what we've got here, right? So with one of these like smaller, cluster units that like I'm thinking of this in terms of this is a really low cost way, me personally even, a really low cost way for me to build a incredibly robust security system, right? So I can use webcams similar to this, a couple of them throughout my house, and have them all driven through my own cloud that's not connected to the internet at all. It's just connected to a local network, local area network. And I would be able to have a pretty robust security system. And I really think there's a lot of opportunity for that around the world because Raspberry Pis themselves are starting to get a lot less expensive. Same with all sorts of other really robust compute modules that used to be really expensive, right? So you're like this one right here, it has potential of 32 gigabytes of RAM. This is going to be less than $1,000, and it will be able to run really, really robust applications. The same thing on AWS to run it through it for a year is probably going to be several $1,000s, not under $1,000. I mean, that it all depends on the actual service you're running and how long you're running it and stuff like that. But I don't know. Those are some ideas. AI, definitely the AI space. It doesn't have to be internet connected. I think that's one of the challenges for any remote area, right? So whether it's in a third world country or not, if you're in a remote area that doesn't get great internet, doing AI based things is going to be key, I think. Yeah. Yes. So should you learn the e-commerce course first? Yes, you should definitely learn the e-commerce course first because it will help you with a number of things that the REST API course doesn't necessarily. Thanks for the question, Rahul. Thanks for coming back too. Good to see you. Let's see here. What topics from the Django docs should I ignore to mainly focus on REST API? There's so much in the Django docs. I don't know how to tell you that. I think the thing about REST APIs is you're going to want to know how to do form validation, which will then be serialization, and then also class-based views. If you know how to do those two things really well, then the REST API stuff I don't think will be that hard. Because it's not. It's really not that hard, I don't think. Yeah. Do I think web apps will replace native apps in the future? I think what we're seeing actually with all kinds of applications is oscillation, right? So oscillation between sometimes it's like what started out as a big mainframe and everyone had their own consoles, like basically a computer, but essentially just connected to the mainframe throughout a business that ran everything. So we're sort of seeing the shift back to that right now with all these cloud services and stuff like that, and mobile applications. But what we'll also see is a shift back. So I think it oscillates back and forth. And I think the web will always be, or the internet will always be a critical piece to all of that. And so I don't know if web apps themselves will replace exactly what native apps do. But I would imagine we're going to start seeing a lot more support for web applications on mobile devices, like a lot of native features supported for web applications on mobile devices in the future too. I mean, the biggest thing about a native application is the fact that it has access to other hardware pieces that a web application doesn't. But what a web application typically runs through is a browser that does have access to those things. So I don't know. We'll probably see more of the blending between these two things as we go forward. But I definitely still think it oscillates a lot between having something installed on your local machine and having something in the cloud. So, like I said, I think we're seeing a big transition back to doing a lot of things on the cloud versus natively, right? So there still might be a native application, but a lot of the work might still be done on the cloud side of things, especially because of AI related things. So the new Photoshop, for example, has a lot of beta tools that do AI processing on the cloud, not on your local machine, even though you're still using Photoshop. But I don't see why they wouldn't have a web app for that at some point. Next one. You're making a switch from Windows to Linux. Can you suggest a good Linux distro? I really like Ubuntu, but I don't actually use Linux for the desktop version of Linux. I use it mostly as a server, so the desktop version is great, I'm sure, but I use it mostly as a server. Okay, guys, so I'm only going to be on for a couple more minutes. I got to get going. I realize I probably missed a lot of you guys, your questions, and that's one of the reasons that I recommend that you do live or super chats. Super chats make it really easy to just answer your question right away. These live chats, as you can tell, I tend to talk for a while on some of these questions because I want to give you the best answers I can, and that typically is what happens. I'm really glad that a lot of you started coming on, because then this thing would have been like 5 minutes long. Um, oh yeah, cool. I got the answer I was looking for. Yeah, I had a sense that it was this information technology service management. Um, yeah, got it. Okay. There are many tools that we use, thus the BMC remedy. Yeah, interesting. Um, I think you would really like Ansible, honestly. You should check it out. Ansible's cool, especially being from the IT world. It's written in Python. So I mentioned this before. Maybe you weren't here, but Ansible from Red Hat, really really cool to manage clusters and manage any server. As long as you can SSH into it, you can use Ansible, which is awesome. There's probably other ways to do it too, but I think it's mostly SSH. Oops, I think I missed that one. For building, in Django for building incident management system. No, but Django kind of there might be there probably is something like that. But Django, like if you know it, it gives you the basis to build it yourself, so you can MVP it really really fast. Yeah. Let's see, Vlad. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Thanks for the support. I'm glad you're enjoying the Q&A or anything else that I do. Yes. How can I build a live stream app using Python? You're probably actually going to use something like Nginx, but it's not that easy to do. I'll say that. So video live streams are not that easy to do, and you're probably going to end up spending a good amount getting that thing working. So yeah, thanks for the question. Okay, guys, so that's going to do it. Thanks so much for all the questions. Oh, it looks like I only have a few more, so maybe I could finish these, or maybe something else happened. I don't know. But yeah, thanks so much for the questions. Okay, Rahul, I'll answer a few more questions here. Let's see. Okay, should I use Django caching, or is it better to cache in Angular? Well, this is like server-side caching or client-side caching. You can do both. I think server-side caching often speeds up the front end quite a bit. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, so don't necessarily overdo it on caching, but we'll see. Any Django project ideas to make your resume stand out? I already have a few ones in place. I think anything machine learning related. So even if it's I wouldn't necessarily host a machine learning application or a machine learning model on Django, but you definitely could. So that's one thing. Single page Django application, like a full-fledged single page Django application. I just did a video on it. I think that might be kind of interesting to stand out because most people aren't necessarily aware that you can do that. I know I wasn't for a really long time. So that might help you stand out. What else? Multi-tenant Django application. That's kind of hard. I get that question a lot. There is a package for it, but to execute it and put it in production, I think would be pretty interesting. And yeah, I think a lot of these project ideas, you should at least put it into production and then maybe pull it later. What else would be interesting? Using Django to manage a bunch of microservices and probably deployed on Kubernetes. So getting all that set up. Not very many people know how to do that or can do that. I'm trying to think of things that are not obviously like, oh yeah, make a social network in Django. Because yeah, you could definitely do that. That would be pretty interesting and probably pretty challenging if you don't know Django that well. But I'll have to think about this. Maybe come back, bro Baggins. That's hilarious. Maybe come back another time and ask me again, and maybe I'll have better suggestions for you. You're an entrepreneur currently leading a team into developing outsourced projects. We're currently struggling at finding clients. Do I have any advice for you? Yes, I have a lot of advice for you. Number one, teach. Tell clients why they should be hiring you. Not by saying, oh, you should hire us because we're the best, because that's kind of dumb. Like, nobody says that, right? Apple never says that. Google never says that. Microsoft never says that. Instead, educate them in the areas that you know really, really well and why they should care about it a lot, right? So if I was doing freelancing or outsourcing projects at all, the things that I would be talking a lot about myself, it's not so much Django, but definitely Kubernetes, Docker, a lot of these infrastructural things. Definitely talking a lot about that. I'd also be talking about AI, talk a lot about that and why that's important. And heck, even OBS, broadcasting, what broadcasting is going to do for a lot of businesses and stuff like that. So, you want to talk about things that might get them interested and excited to learn more about the business that you're working on and the things that you do. I think education does a great job at that. And then just throw it up on medium.com. Medium.com is an easy way to get discovered. So if you find publications that fit with the thing that you're outsourcing, write on there as often as you possibly can and say, and be straightforward and say, like, we're an outsourcing team for this, this, and this. Hopefully it's really, really narrow. It's not like, oh, we do everything, because of course you could do everything, but what do you do really well, and stick with that. Finding clients is not easy though. So the clients you do have, go above and beyond, and then hopefully you can ask them to introduce you to other people. That is another way to really start getting that going, because you want a word of mouth thing. Another way is to actually support open source projects from some business that you want their job. Or their work, basically. So a good example of this would be Ansible, actually. So Ansible is a Python automation tool, and you could totally help Red Hat find better ways of doing things. Like you could commit to the Ansible repo and see if you can actually improve that. And then that might put you guys on Red Hat's radar, and maybe they can introduce you to more people and stuff like that. So I don't know. There's a few ideas that may work. We'll see. Okay. Yes. Can I show you the books from before? I can do that. Let me show you real fast. They're sitting right there. Here's a few books that are probably worth checking out. And that is my makeshift stand for this webcam. So hopefully that solved the question for you. Grokking Deep Learning with Andrew Trask. If you want to know the bare bones, writing a neural network with NumPy, that's the way to do it. You know what I mean? Okay, guys. So that's it. I think we got it all. Charisma, hello, good morning, and sorry, I'm jumping off now. It was probably too early in the morning for you guys. Can you develop an ERP system in Django React? You absolutely can. But yeah, anyway, so thanks for tuning in, guys. Next time, maybe I'll have to do it. Well, I'm definitely gonna have to do it at a different time so we get a better discussion going. And Vlad, thanks for the super chat there too. Every little bit helps. I really appreciate it. So anyways, thanks guys. I will talk to you again in the near future. See ya.